And I wanted you to see my face so that you could see how excited I am. And Katrilia, that introduction got me all choked up before I even started. And I'm glad you're focusing on yourself. And for everybody in the audience, that is what today is about. And I'm going to share lots of information about how, whoops, we're flipping through. Can you go to the next slide actually and stay there for a minute?
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and take myself off camera so you can focus not on the glare of my big glasses, but on the slides themselves. So I think you got a hint of what today is about. It's about you. Today's not about you thinking during these 45 minutes about what you're going to do for your students or what you're going to do for your family or your parents or anybody else. It's about you. And I think you get the message with the pictures I put here, but I want to tell you a quick story. I was in a seminar once led by a speaker who asked the question to the audience, during a crisis, if you were on a plane with your child, who would you put the mask on first? I don't have children. And I automatically said, well, myself, of course, I've heard it many times. And so many people raised their hands and said sheepishly, I'd put the mask on my child despite the instructions. Self-care isn't selfish. Today, the focus is on you and how to improve your own well-being, and hopefully you're going to learn tools to do that. Can we go to the next page? Much of the information I'm going to share today comes from this book, and you may know the authors. They're the authors of Strength Finders, but the book is published in coordination with Gallup, who does lots and lots of research. And it's actually one of the reasons that we talk about this book. There are a lot of models of well-being out there, but this is the one we choose because there is so much research, decades of research that goes into this book. So I think it's important, the quote on the inside cover, after you read this book, this will enable you to enjoy each day and get more out of your life, while boosting the well-being of your friends, your family members, your colleagues, and others in your community. Can we go to the next slide? Well-being is a word we throw around a lot, right? You hear it in my world, I hear it all day long. And actually, what is it? What does it mean, well-being? From Gallup tells us, well-being is about the combination of our love for what we do each day, the quality of our relationships, the security of our finances, the vibrancy of our physical health, and the pride we take in what we've contributed to our communities. And most importantly, it's about how these 5 elements interact. And you are going to hear that throughout the presentation today. There's a connection to the 5 elements, and they're interdependent. Let's go to the next slide. So Katrilia mentioned the wheel of well-being, and this is the Gallup wheel of well-being. And at Kaiser Permanente, when we work with our employer groups or internally, this is the model that we talk about. And again, all 5 of these are interrelated and interdependent. The 5 include purpose, or it might be called career, liking what you do each day and being motivated to achieve goals. Social, having supportive relationships and love in your life. Financial, managing your economic life to reduce stress and increase security. Reduce stress is something you're going to hear a lot about in each of these today. Community, liking where you live, feeling safe and having pride in where you live. And physical, having good health and enough energy to get things done. And the really cool thing about this is that there's a ripple effect. So today we're going to talk about how to boost your well-being in each of these areas, but know that when you do, that you also boost the well-being of your colleagues, your friends, and your family and your community. So before we move on in the chat, I want to hear from people. Anything you see missing? Let's see. Is anybody writing in the chat?
Creativity.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give you the answer. my answer anyway, so that we can move on. But I bet some people are saying, where's mental health? Where's my emotional well-being? Pay attention today, because that is intertwined in each of these areas. It is definitely there. It's an important element of our overall well-being. It's incorporated into each of these. So let's move on. And now we're going to have some poll questions. So in the chat, if you could, let's look at the first question. Out of the 5 elements, there's one that has the most significance in your overall well-being. Which do you think it is? I'll give you a few seconds here so we can get some answers. Is it physical, social, career or purpose, financial, or community? A, B, we're all over the place. I like it. The answer, I think, is going to surprise people. The answer to the first one is C, and the answer to the second is B. Anybody surprised by that? The heaviest weight is on purpose?
I am.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to the next slide. I like the upside down happy face. So what we learn in these studies, in this research, is that while 66% of people are doing well in at least one of these areas, only 7% are thriving in all 5. And unless we're living effectively in all 5, we're not getting the most out of our lives. So, you might say to yourself, it is impossible for me to thrive in all those areas. We're living in uncertain times. Inflation's high. There's fear we're headed for a mental health pandemic. The world's influences are out of my control. So know this, the information I'm sharing with you today reflects crises of the past 8 decades, and those included the Great Depression, Pearl Harbor, World War II, the Kennedy assassination, the riots in the 60s, 9/11, 2008 global financial crash, and the COVID pandemic. So it's normal that our well-being is going to have its ups and downs based on external factors, but it's how we influence the aspects of our own well-being that make the difference. So these 5 elements are foundational, but they can be improved. And the really cool thing I mentioned before is when you improve your own well-being, there's a ripple effect to the people around you. So let's talk about the first one that carries the most weight, and that is purpose. If we can move on and keep going. Mark Twain said the 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. So Gallup tells us that for people that thrive in this area, that have a high score under purpose or career, they're able to answer the question, do you like what you do each day? It's interesting that researchers found you don't need a paycheck to have a thriving career or purpose, well-being score. You need to find something that you enjoy doing and do it every day. I love this video, and it reminds you about you don't need to experience a big paycheck to find your purpose. So let's play it, and fingers crossed everybody can hear it. We see it, but we can't hear it.
Okay, I'm turning up the sound.
There it goes. There it goes.
Do you feel like life has a purpose?
I do.
I think so. I'm here to make people happy and smile.
Educate and entertain. To marry my woman.
Being a mother to my 2 children.
Different times in your life, you have different purposes.
Spiritually, emotionally,
Personal, professional.
I think I'm still trying to figure that out, my purpose.
my challenge sometimes can be figuring out which one I want to care about most today.
I'm only 14, so I don't really know what my purpose is at the moment.
Still looking now.
think most people equate their purpose to monetary ambitions.
There's something deeper than, what kind of car you drive and how nice you look.
I love to inspire, motivate, and encourage people.
Whenever I can, to be a mentor.
Being available to help someone in their journey. Because I feel like there are a lot of people in this world that are lost and don't have anyone there for them.
The purpose of your life is sort of defined by your actions and by the manner in which you've lived.
I'm here to help inspire other people to live life to their fullest.
Like, I meant to be nice with everyone.
Open the world to empathy.
At this point in my life, I'm feeling like, who knows?
And as I'm getting older, I'm definitely trying to figure out more and more.
Because there are many people whose career, how they make a living, where their passion is, what they're good at is actually their job.
I feel like I have a purpose in life because I just want to keep on moving forward.
Always learning, growing.
I think it's just that journey and the curiosity about life.
Do what you're passionate about. Don't just get caught up in that sort of, hamster wheel of getting by.
I really love animals, writing, just storytelling.
To share my gifts and talents with other people.
Figure out how I can live to be at least 110.
Making people laugh and having fun.
I believe my purpose is to have children. And I'm very excited for them.
The purpose of life is to experience it, enjoy opportunities, and also recognize that there's going to be hills and valleys.
Take advantage of being alive.
Exchange as much love as you can while you're here.
To live the best life you can with as most enthusiasm as you can so that other people will benefit by your having lived.
Wow.
Wow. I want to be her.
So pancake, subscribe.
Thank you for sharing that. Some interesting things to know about purpose and your health. People with high purpose well-being are more than twice as likely to be thriving in their lives overall. And here's an interesting example of interconnectedness of the pillars that we talked about. Let's say you have great social relationships, financial security, and good physical health, but you don't like what you do every day. Chances are most of your social time you're going to spend worrying or complaining about your lousy job, causing stress. There's that word we're going to hear a lot about today. Causing stress, it's going to take a toll on your physical and your mental health. If your career well-being is low, over time, it becomes detrimental in other areas. Other findings include when you can boost your career or your purpose well-being, you reduce the risk of anxiety and depression. And I want to tell you about a study that Gallup talked about. It's called the Old Age Study, and it's from 1958, and they say that it still holds true today. The study was done with hundreds of Americans who were 95 and older. They had strong career or purpose well-being, and they found that it was a differentiator that helped help these people live well into their 90s. In 1958, most people retired close to 65. And we're talking about mostly men in this study in 1958 who worked. But it's interesting that the men who lived to 95 didn't retire until they were 80 years old. 93% of these men said that a great deal of their satisfaction came from what they did every day. 86% reported having fun doing their jobs. So I hope that sheds a little light onto why purpose, again, all interconnected, but why the researchers found that carries the most weight in your overall well-being. Can we go to the next slide? So at the end of each chapter and at the end of each of the sections that we're going to go over today, Gallup summarizes for you through their research how you can boost your purpose or career well-being. The 3 bullets they share, the breakdown is every day use your strengths. Number 2, identify someone with a shared mission who encourages your growth and spend more time with this person. Opt into more social time with the people and the teams you enjoy being around. And these logos are just some suggestions. LinkedIn can help you connect with individuals who share a common mission or goal, and you can do that. You can do that virtually. You might find groups where you can meet up in person. So if you're opting in to spend more social time with these people that you enjoy being around, again, you're gonna see the connectedness with the next pillar that we're gonna talk about. And if we could go to the next slide, we're gonna talk about the social well-being. And the next slide, please. How's your social well-being? I love this picture. There's something about having close relationships in general that's really good for our health. Relationships serve as a buffer during tough times, and that in turn improves our cardiovascular functioning and decreases stress level. On the other hand, people with few social ties have nearly twice the risk of dying from heart disease and are twice as likely to catch colds. And listen to this, even though they're less likely to have exposure to the germs that come from frequent social contact. We're all connected. There's a 30-year study that's cited that says if someone in your network is happy, the odds of being happy increase by 15% for someone else in your network. This research explored how our social connections also influence our habits, our behaviors, and our health. Take smoking. If you're connected to a smoker, they're 61% more likely to smoke than based on chance. If your friend's friend is a smoker, you're 29% more likely to smoke. And at the third degree, 11% more likely. And if we were to sit here and talk about obesity, the numbers are even more dramatic. So investing in healthy relationships has shown to increase healing time in wounds and healing from other risk factors versus those that don't have healthy relationships. And proximity also matters here. Your neighbor's well-being influences yours, and a friend that lives less than a mile away from you has more influence on your well-being than one who's several miles away. Social active people over the age of 50, their memories decline at less than half the rate compared with those who are least social. The message here is we have stock in others' well-being as well as our own. So people with thriving social well-being, they have great relationships, which gives them positive energy on a daily basis. And remember, we're talking about a daily basis, not someday in the future when you have time. All of this is what happens on a daily basis. Can we go to the next slide? The ways that research has found that you can help boost your social well-being, and you may laugh at the first one. Spend 6 hours a day socializing with friends, family, and colleagues at work and home. The good news is that includes the virtual world. That includes texting. That includes emails. That includes phone calls. Strengthening your mutual connections in your network and mixing social time with physical activity. That is my favorite one. I used to live in a place that had a beautiful walking trail, and I had a girlfriend every night. I would knock on her door after we came home from work and we got our steps in. And I talked to her recently and she said, I don't do that anymore. And it just made me realize that it was the importance of doing it together. So just think about for a moment how you're going to boost your social well-being. Are you accomplishing any of these? Maybe this is your strongest score. Let's go to the next slide and the next pillar of well-being, which I find the most interesting, and that is financial. And go ahead to the next slide. Is wealth accumulation the wrong target? So our gold standard of measuring financial wealth is typically what people think of how much money you have. But it's not the best gauge of financial well-being. So here's a little experiment that was done, and think about yourself when I tell you this. Imagine that I'm handing you an envelope and you get an envelope of either $5 or in the envelope there's 20, and I ask you to spend all the money by 5 o'clock that day. Think about what you'd do. Would you go to Starbucks? Would you spend it on bills or personal items? What about on somebody else? Maybe you'd donate it to charity. In a Gallup study, they found that the amount of money at the end of the day by 5 o'clock had no bearing on the levels of people's happiness. What did have a bearing on their happiness was how they spent the money. The participants who spent the money on a gift for someone else or who gave it to a charity, they experienced a significant boost in well-being, while the people who spent the money on themselves did not. And I want to share a story about a friend of mine. So a friend of mine lost her husband to a terrible battle with cancer 2 years ago. And she had to start meeting with her financial advisor, and she realized that her husband left her in very good shape. She wasn't expecting it financially. Her financial advisor helps her with, investments, but her financial advisor told her, you are in a position now to help others, to give to others. She has this incredible love for animals. She donates a lot of her time and resources to stray animals, and she's a big protester of using animals in product testing. She told me the story because we were out for dinner recently with a group, and she said, I insist on picking up the check, and we argued about it. And she said, you don't know how good this makes me feel. It reminds me of my husband. It reminds me of what I'm here to do. Please let me do this for us tonight. I have had the best evening. And the fact that her recommendation came from her financial advisor, I think that tells a lot. Can we go to the next poll question? Next question I have for everybody to answer in the chat. Okay. So another lesson about financial well-being will be learned here. Consider the following two scenarios, and I'm going to let you read on your own. Put your answer. Would you choose A or B? An annual income of $50,000 while the people around you earn $25,000, or an annual income of $100,000 while the people around you earn $200,000. Don't think about it too much.
That's hard to do.
Okay, so thank you. You're all so smart. So I want to tell you about what the results of this research showed. So using our classic economic model, everyone should choose B, right? Again, our classic economic model. But do you know nearly half the people presented with this option chose A, and they would make half the income of their peers. So let's go to the reasons why people chose A. We can go to the next slide. What you just experienced and I shared with you is called the comparison trap. So it seems that researchers have found the amount of money we make or the size of our home is less relevant than how they compare to others' income and their possessions. So just think about that. I'm going to say it again. The amount of money we make or the size of our home is less relevant than how they compare to others' income and possessions. This comparison trap plays out in the decisions we make every day, and it poses a real dilemma, maybe even a threat to our health and well-being. If we compare ourselves to others, we may be left with feelings of inferiority or superiority. Neither creates an emotionally healthy human being. So boosting one's own personal purpose and social well-being is one way around the comparison dilemma. Can we go to the next page? So ways to boost your financial well-being. The number one, again, we're getting back to this, how all the pillars are connected. Make sure your career and purpose and your social well-being are thriving. Gallup found that buying experiences outweighs buying things. Spend on others instead of solely on material possessions. And my favorite that's helped me over the years is establish default systems, automatic payments and savings. and you lessen your daily worries about money and stress. And something else interesting they found. People that had financial well-being, strong financial well-being, they ignored financial advice in favor of less stress. An example of that is you probably hear that if you can pay off your mortgage, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it because you're going to have lower historic returns and there's the tax implications. But people said that as a result of them managing their money wisely, paying off their mortgage gave them more financial freedom to spend more time with the people whose company they enjoy the most. So something to think about. This is my favorite pillar, and it's all about community. Could we go to the video that's next? And be thinking about what community means to you.
Community that.
Can you hear it yet?
Yes.
Community,
Good.
what would it consist of?
Okay, I'll think of my perfect community. Right now, my home. You can have the hope word in it. My idea of a perfect community is one where people really work together and support each other to be more conscious about, what we do to the environment, to be more conscious about how we conduct ourselves as individuals and how we represent, to the children in the community.
Well, the community I'd like to live in would be sort of a, like an oasis.
A place where, you can sit down, have a chat with someone. Even though we're all different, I think, and at the core, we all have a lot of similarities.
My perfect community would be a movie theater across the street, coffee shop a couple blocks down, a sushi place not too far away. So something that kind of has a little bit of everything and access to everything, but still is quiet and not quite so hustle and bustle. But be able to be close to that if I want that, because I like that sometimes too. If anything, I would love to be able to walk out and know everybody in my community. The baristas at this coffee place, and you always go over there for the best crepes. And when your family's in town, you're like, no, we have to go here. We have to see this theater, and then you walk on down, you get the half-price cocktail. Community to me would be like-minded individuals sharing in that vision of helping the community become better. We would get together and do potlucks and things like that. Almost like an extended family.
One area with this nightlife, and at the same time, one area where I can still get away and still be quiet and be in a peaceful area where there's not a lot of emotion.
It's walkable. I can go 5 blocks and get to something. I like to pass other people who are walking their dogs early in the morning or late at night. And we're like, hey, yeah.
I value nature.
I like being in my big city. I don't want to be out in the boonies somewhere where I have to go out driving.
Such a thing as possible to have this oasis right up next to the city.
Some people just want to be able to knock on their neighbor's door. You can walk over and grab an egg or something. Some people want to live in a community that's close to everything. Walk to restaurants, shops, and I like to shop locally. Community must be something where there's kind of like a social pact.
You're part of a bigger thing.
I think we're all supposed to live in community, so one where we actually are together. To me, that's community.
Qualities that describe a perfect community include aesthetics, which would include park trails, playgrounds, clean environment, social offerings where people can meet, spend time with friends, enjoy nightlife, openness to all types of people, race, heritage, age, or sexual orientation, and feeling safe in your community is key to your well-being. Your community should be a good fit for your personality, your family interests, and other pursuits. Ways to boost your community well-being. And when you do this, you can move from a good life to an exceptional life. If you keep to yourself, you're going to have a lower community well-being. It's beneficial to get yourself involved in social groups. A thriving community is about what we give back to our community as well. For example, donating blood to the American Red Cross, a food drive for those in need, a breast cancer walk or run for survivors. People who reside in thriving communities find ways to opt in, just like the direct deposit we just talked about, opt into regular donations and volunteering. Some of the ways you can boost your community well-being is tell people about your passions and interests so they can connect you with relevant groups and causes. Something on this page, volunteers often get a helper's high. They feel stronger, more energetic, and more motivated to help others. Out of 23,000 people interviewed, 9 out of 10 said they get an emotional boost from doing kind things for other people. Well-doing, not well-being, well-doing promotes deeper social interaction, enhanced meaning and purpose, and a more active lifestyle. It keeps us from being too preoccupied with ourselves or getting into harmful emotional states. Physical well-being, last but not least. The chapter in the book tells us some sobering statistics about our physical well-being and the economics of poor health and obesity, talks about the need to protect your genes so that you're not passing bad health, but good health onto your offspring. Talks about the importance of sleep, nutrition, and exercise. And it sums it all up by saying things that I bet you know already. That you should eat 5 to 13 servings of vegetables every day, sleep 7 to 9 hours a night, and exercise at least 30 minutes 5 times a day. You know, when I read this, I remember thinking, really? I know this. I bet you all know it too. And I don't know about you, but all the advice and dollars that you can spend on trying to accomplish all those things can make you feel overwhelmed and sometimes defeated. I love this slide because, you know, it's Alice in responsibility land. I think of all the responsibilities that you all already have, and then there's all these physical recommendations that sometimes can just feel impossible. Again, that word stress, we're trying to decrease your stress, not add to it by giving you unrealistic expectations of how to be the best physical condition that you can be. I mean, they're obviously true. I don't know many people that meet them all, and I'm in the business, if you will. You know, accomplishing all those things is about behavior change, and we know it's not easy. You know, this is a joke that you've probably heard Mark Twain. To cease smoking is the easiest thing I ever did. I ought to know I've done it 1,000 times. But the principles of behavior change and finding your joy along the way are key in trying to meet all of those physical recommendations. And let me share with you some principles that we often teach about around behavior change in the next slide. This slide with the percentages on there, these are the influencers, the 4 areas that contribute to behavior change. And I think they might surprise people because let me tell you, we work with a lot of employer groups, and the first thing they see is data about their employees, and they may find they have a number of smokers that they would rather help decrease. So the first thing they say is, well, let's do a lot of education. That'll help everybody change. Well, that's 5% of the contributor. The biggest contributor is policy and environment, which doesn't that sound boring? But it's not. But think about it. Think about the smoking rates in California compared to other states and why that is. California enacted laws, businesses enacted policies, and our smoking rates decreased. A gentler way to think about this when you're thinking about yourself is make the healthy choice the easy choice. Create your own right environment. So make the healthy choice the easier choice. A couple of things I've done since I've learned this, I wasn't eating my vegetables that I should every week. So I started ordering imperfect produce that I get every Tuesday, and I have to use it or it rots. And I look up recipes that say, easy way to cook asparagus. And I do it. And I've done it since the lockdown, and it works. Another thing I want to tell you about is motivation, and a very bad habit I've had since I've been a child is diet soda. And I considered it an important part of my life until January of this year when I saw it affecting my health and digestive issues. I spent a fortune on my teeth that my doctor told me was a result of losing my bonding from carbonation. And I've tried many times to quit. Well, I knew I looked at this deck and I thought, socialization. Is there anybody else who's struggling with this? I found a Facebook group that has 3,000 people in it that are trying to do the same. We help each other. We give each other cheers on the back. And one thing they did for my motivation was they said, sign up for this app called Quitzilla. Quitzilla is a countdown. So you put in the moment that you stopped and it's a ticker. So I learned this morning, I have been diet soda free for 100, almost 200 days. I look at it about once a week. And that I will have saved $2,000 in a year. And I am going to spend that on traveling and seeing friends that I haven't connected with in a long time. So those are my own examples. But one thing to walk away, make the healthy choice the easy choice. When we talk about exercise, sometimes it can feel like another to-do with the possibility of that inadequate feeling that we don't want to get, even though we know it has life-saving advantages. So this woman, look at this woman doing yoga, crossing off her to-do list. Do you ever feel like her? It can feel like a chore. So let's go to the next slide. I love all the things popping up in the chat. I wish I had time to respond. So I heard this author interviewed on a happiness podcast. There are such things, that science-backed happiness podcast. And she spoke to me when she said, exercise is health enhancing and life extending, yet many of us feel it's a chore. Like that yoga woman. It's another thing on our to-do list. She shared this science-based book that doesn't tell us why we should exercise. It shows how to fall in love with movement. Movement can and should be a source of joy. If you can go to the next slide. This is me in my happy place. I love to ski. I am not a terribly athletic person. It's just something I love. It's my time with nature. I like listening to music if I have nobody to ski with, and kind of dancing on the snow. This is an old Kaiser ad that illustrates what I'm talking about. For our famous Thrive campaign, our advertising and marketing people conducted many focus groups where they learned that people want to focus on living their best lives every day, not struggling with disease. This ad speaks to what we learned about being true to ourselves, our purpose, and living our best lives. We all want to create more good days in our lives, and then we can do that by increasing our overall well-being. Gallup advises setting more positive defaults in your life. And I want you to think about what that might look like. Would it look like automatic financial deposits, a vegetable order that comes every Tuesday, a Wednesday evening hike, meeting with your neighbor, a long weekend in May that you planned back in June, a monthly calendar walking meeting with your manager? We do that on my team. We meet over phones while we're out for a walk. Or scheduling your volunteer appointments. Through our daily choices, you can create stronger friendships, families, workplace, and community. And through your daily choices, may you all thrive. And thank you for allowing me to spend time with you this morning.